Hi there and welcome to yet another video. Today we are handling how to handle tricky interview questions like a pro. Probably you are having an upcoming interview and you're wondering how best can you be able to tackle any interview question that may find you off guard. I believe this video will come in handy. Let's begin by first of all understanding what are tricky interview questions. These are questions that are prepared by an interviewer or a recruiter, basically to try and exert pressure on you as a candidate. The goal of a tricky interview question is designed to find you off guard as a candidate. They could seem to be a bit irrelevant or confusing at a glance, but believe you me, these interview questions serve a purpose. So it is very important even for you as a candidate to be able to get to know why do employers or why do interviewers ask such kind of tricky questions. The goal is to bring out your ability to critically think on your feet. They want to see how well are you able to process the information, how good are you when it comes to problem solving, especially under pressure, how does even your personality or character trait looks like in terms of you being seen as a good fit to their team culture. So preparing for these tricky interview questions will help you to be able to showcase your strengths and even enhance your chances of landing that dream job. So let's explore some of the strategies into which you can be able to handle any tricky interview question with confidence. Strategy number one, and this is very important whether you are just starting off your career or you are in your mid-level or you're being interviewed for a very senior executive position. Number one is to stay calm and composed. It goes without saying. In an interview question, all the questions that you will be asked are coming out as an impromptu, because the truth is no matter how many days, sleepless nights you have preparing, you still don't know exactly the type of questions that you are going to be asked. So to add icing to the cake, if that question seemed to be a bit tricky, all you're required to do as a candidate at that point is to stay calm and composed. This is not the time for you to panic, because it becomes very vital for you as a candidate to maintain your poise, take a deep breath, and just remind yourself that as far as confidence and nervousness is concerned, a little bit of nervousness is perfectly okay because it keeps you on check as a candidate. It is perfectly okay to feel nervous. And that is why being able to stay calm and just compose yourself will come in handy to help you collect your thoughts and be able to think more clearly and respond more effectively to that tricky question. Remember, the interviewer is not only assessing your answers or your responses, but also how you handle pressure. And remember, the goal of a tricky interview question is to exert some kind of pressure on you. So they are also very keen on in scenarios or instances where you're most likely to encounter pressure. If you're successful for the role, how are you going to handle it? Hence, they need to stay calm and composed. Strategy number two, when it comes to being able to handle any tricky interview question during an interview, is just take a moment and think. In fact, I always tell candidates, a little bit of silence is perfectly okay during an interview. When a question has been asked, you need few moments to just be able to collect your thoughts, put your thoughts together, or rather gather your thoughts. So it is perfectly acceptable during an interview to pause for a few seconds and just allow yourself to process the question that you have been asked. That silence is also exerting pressure on the interviewers, and they could be wondering, okay, why is Mary silent all of a sudden, yet she was all over the place discussing. You're taking advantage of those few seconds to collect your thoughts. This also shows the interviewer that you are considering your answer very thoughtfully rather than just jumping into responding without collecting your thoughts together. Sometimes you may be wondering, as a strategy to buy time to think of what to say when responding to such a tricky interview question, how do you go about it? You may consider making a statement like, All right, that's a very great question. Let me think about it for just few seconds. When you make such kind of a phrase or a statement, the interviewer will be able to appreciate the fact that you just don't want to jump into giving a response, but you want to ensure that the response you're giving is a well thought out response or answer to the question they have asked. The third strategy when it comes to handling tricky interview questions like a pro, as I always say as an interview coach, is to always have a framework. Wrap your thoughts around a certain kind of framework, and what works best is the STAR method. A STAR method basically gives you an opportunity to be able to put yourself into action during an interview by showcasing your track record of success. In case you're wondering, what do I mean by a STAR method? This is an abbreviation. STAR, basically S stands for the situation. So you're trying to describe what was the situation or the scenario you found yourself in that gave you an opportunity to handle any responsibility or tasks that is described in the question that you have been asked. And T normally stands for the task. So what was your assignment in that situation? And based on your assignment in that situation, what actions did you take? So you realize that maybe the situation was a challenge that you encountered, a situation could be a problem that you faced. So what actions, what are the steps that you followed to solve whatever issue it was when you are handling a similar responsibility in the question you've been asked? And most importantly, as we all know that our actions will always result into an outcome. So what was the result? What was the outcome? So here you're emphasizing more on the positive side. And in case you find yourself giving a situation that really did not result into a positive outcome, that build more on the lessons that you learned. So you realize that if you're able to apply a STAR method, it keeps you on check in terms of being able to handle any tricky interview question. That structured approach will always help you as a candidate to be able to convey not only your experiences clearly and effectively, but also it makes your response to be more compelling. Strategy number 4, when it comes to being able to handle tricky interview question like a pro, is just to be honest and authentic. Employers or interviewers will always appreciate authenticity when it comes to candidates responding to interview questions. So your goal or your role as a candidate is to strive by all means to be genuine in your responses. And you will all agree with me, whenever you're having a conversation with any person, even if it is not during an interview, you can tell when someone is not being honest with in their conversation. So sharing real experiences, including the success stories as well as potential challenges that you have encountered, helps to build trust and credibility with the interviewer. Remember, it is not just about what you're saying, but also how you are saying it. And that is where authenticity comes in for you as a candidate during an interview. Your honesty can help in setting you apart from any other candidate that is being interviewed for that role. So for you to be able to handle that interview questions that seems to be a bit tricky, remember to incorporate all these strategies so that you are able to equip yourself effectively. The first strategy I've talked about is staying calm and composed, and then also consider using a STAR method or just having a certain kind of framework to help you be more articulate and coherent in your responses, as well as being very honest and authentic, taking a moment to think and just being honest and authentic again in your responses. So as we wrap up this video, the best way to be able to be confident during an interview, even when responding to tricky interview questions, is to practice, practice, practice. I keep saying practice makes perfect. So think beforehand, what are some of the areas into which the interviewer might want to assess your suitability on, and you might find it to be a bit tricky to respond on, and practice answering such tricky questions. You can consider practicing with a friend. You can consider practicing in front of a mirror. You may consider doing research online resources always available, or you may want to consider a mock interview or an interview coaching session to help you build confidence when it comes to responding to some of these tricky interview questions. So the goal is for you to be able to boost your confidence and improve your performance during an interview. And yes, you want to sign that offer letter. So I believe this has come in handy for you, and I encourage you to subscribe to this channel. Share with me in the comment section how your own experience has been when it comes to handling tricky interview questions, areas you would want us to discuss in our upcoming videos, and we will ensure that we address them. The link provided below with this video will help you to reach out to us in case you have an upcoming interview and you would want to have the coach guide you on how best to prepare. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.